Hello everybody, and welcome back to Echo. We are continuing along with Flynn's route today with Thursday, but I'm going to have to split this into two parts because my poor voice cannot take doing the whole thing in one go. Trust me, I've tried practicing that. So bearing that in mind, let's continue. I open my eyes blearily, waking up to the sound of something pounding in the distance. I stare at the ceiling a moment, then abruptly prop myself up on my elbows, looking around, confused. Where the hell? Oh yeah, Flynn's room. I'd fallen asleep on Flynn's bed, naked after I'd taken a shower. Turns out the lizards don't have dryers, so I was left to air dry. I was tired, so Flynn had let me lay out on his bed on a few towels, and that's where I am right now. Guess I fell asleep. Again, the pounding. I look over to my right and see Flynn curled up, his back facing me. I think he's naked as well for a moment, then I see he's got boxer briefs on, the black color blending in with his skin. I reach over to poke the rough skin of his scaly back. The frills on the back of his neck flare out for a second, then lay back down. I almost do it again, but Flynn's grumpy, annoyed as hell tone stops me. What? I clear my throat. Sorry, but it sounds like... I don't have to say it because the pounding starts back up again, echoing up the hallway. What the fuck? Flynn pushes himself up into a sitting position, squinting at the hallway through the door. What time is it? Flynn rolls off the bed and starts putting on a shirt. I grab my phone, glad to see that it's still at half charge. It's 9. At the same time, I notice that I have texts, several of them. From Leo. Shit. What? Flynn hops around the room as he tries to pull on some pants. My eyes scan over the texts, realizing who it likely is that's knocking on the door. The messages started about 2 hours ago. Hey, I was at the motel and you weren't there. Jenna says she doesn't know where you are either. She says you didn't spend the night there. You and Flynn are the only ones not answering my messages. Are you at his house? Hello? I feel my stomach go into a knot. Fuck. Flynn whirls on me, annoyed, now fully dressed. The knocking has stopped, but I'm still uneasy about what I've just found out. I think it's Leo. What? This time Flynn sounds panicked. He's been texting me all morning. He thinks I'm here now. I show Flynn my screen, but he barely looks at it. He's got his arms folded, his mind clearly racing. You know he can't find out that I spent the night here. I try to keep my voice under control. I know. Yeah, we both know. Things are basically over between Leo and I. But that doesn't change the fact that this will bring up all kinds of problems in our little friend group. Flynn paces for a few seconds, then turns back to me. Well, he's gone now. I can just get Carl to say that you spent the night at his... He already texted Carl. Shit! Flynn groans and hangs back his head. Well, did he ask him if he spent the night there? No, just that he didn't know where I am. At least that's what he said in the text. I'll just tell him I don't know, and Carl can say you were there. Don't you think Carl would have told... Flynn suddenly reaches out, grabbing my shoulder and throwing me sideways onto the bed. I stare at him, wide-eyed, but he's not looking at me. Instead, he's staring at the window behind me. What? He throws his hand out in my face, silencing me. Flynn moves to the window, and that's when I notice a big shadow shifting around out there. I scramble to the other side of the bed, heart hammering in my chest. Did he see me? The curtain is covering most of the window, but the foot-long gap at the end is just enough to look in. Flynn starts pantomiming in front of the window, shrugging his shoulders and shaking his head. Finally, he drops his arms with a sigh and leans in to crack the window open. What the hell are you doing? Why the hell didn't you answer your door? Leo's voice is angry. Honestly, a lot more angry than I would have expected, despite the situation. I just woke up. I was knocking for like 5 fucking minutes. I'm a heavy sleeper. You're dressed and everything.
I just got dressed. Most people don't go peeking into windows when they don't get an answer, though.
Flynn glares through the window. I quietly roll off the bed so I can hide better, even if I'm not in view of the window from here. Listen, I'm just looking for Chase. Have you seen him?
No.
Flynn shifts his position a bit, in my direction, as if trying to block Leo's view.
Looking for something?
Yeah, Chase.
Well, he ain't here. Why would he be?
He stayed behind with you at the party, didn't he?
Yep, then ran off to do some project or something.
There's a long pause. Ooh, Chica. Can I come in for a sec? I need a drink.
What? Go back to your house, man.
You saying you don't want me to come in? Flynn sighs loudly, rubbing his eyes.
I'm saying I'm tired.
It's 10 in the fucking morning.
It's 9, but yeah, sometimes I stay up late.
Why? Flynn lowers his hand from his eyes and glares out at Leo.
Listen, I'm not really in the mood for this right now.
Another long pause.
You're acting a little crazy right now, too.
Listen, I'll be on my way if I can just come in for a bit. I'm fucking burning up. I see Flynn push his forehead against the glass, eyes closed, frustration written all over his face.
Alright, a glass of water, then get out so I can go back to sleep.
Fine. With that, Flynn closes the window, watching it for a while before sighing loudly again.
Alright, stay here, got it? If he knows you're here, we both know he'll kill us both.
Yeah.
Alright. If for whatever reason he comes back here, hide under the fucking bed if you have to.
With that, Flynn turns and heads out the door into the hallway. That last thing he said has me feeling like shit. Sneaking around behind Leo's back like this is wrong, even if I know telling him about it would be worse. Is it my fault that Leo can't get over our relationship? I have the right to do what I want, right? I sigh and press my forehead into the bed. Staring at my crotch, that's when I realize that I'm still naked. I look up, listening. I hear the front door open, followed by some distant mumbling from Leo. If I sneak to the bathroom real quick, I can grab my clothes. Maybe stay there until Leo leaves. At least that way it won't look as bad if he finds me for whatever reason. I get up and pad quietly to the hall, listening. I can hear some clinking around in the kitchen, then the murmur of some voices. The kitchen is practically out of sight from the hall, which leads to the living room. I stand there for a moment longer, tail twitching as I contemplate if this is a good idea or not. The moment I hear Leo's voice coming from the kitchen area again, I quickly tiptoe the short distance to the bathroom. Despite not having come close at all to being caught, my heart still hammers in my chest. The voices continue to mumble in the kitchen as I start looking around for my clothes. They're folded neatly on the counter and I quickly snatch them up. Pretty sure I wouldn't smell on you. I catch a few words from Leo that makes my ears perk. Something about smell? Leo smells a lot of things. He has a canine's nose. My eyes widen. Did he smell me on Flynn? I'm pretty sure Flynn hasn't showered since what we did yesterday. My heart rate picks up again as I feel my knees wanting to give out.
Where the fuck are you going?
This time I do hear Flynn, and I know exactly what it means. The only problem is that I'm still naked in the fucking bathroom. Should I lock the door? Then Leo would definitely know someone's here and that it's probably me. Fuck! I mouth the word, knowing that Leo would hear it if I said it now. I hear heavy footsteps coming up the hall. I definitely can't go back to the room and hide under the bed now. They don't keep coming toward the bathroom, though. The movements become somewhat muffled again as they turn into Flynn's room.
This is fucking crazy, Leo.
If Leo heard Flynn, he doesn't say anything. I anticipate the sounds of Leo ripping up Flynn's room, but I guess he isn't that far gone because things go quiet again. Then there's some pacing around, along with heavy breathing.
You realize I could call the cops, right?
I hear the closet door open. I look around desperately, realizing that I don't have much time. The first thing I see is the shower curtain in the bathtub. It's a see-through blue color, so there's no way I can stand behind it and not be seen. I hear shifting around in the other room again, and their bickering becomes more clear as they step back into the hall. Panicking and practically numb with fear, I crouch down and pull open a cupboard under the sink. Amazingly, there are only a few bottles of cleaning solutions, leaving plenty of room for me to squeeze in. As quietly as I can, I crawl into the opening. Reaching back out, I pull the door closed, setting my other hand against it as I do so that it won't spring shut. Everything goes dark and their voices become muffled once again. I back up against the very back of the enclosure, hugging my knees as I try to keep my breathing quiet. It's actually a little while before they come into the bathroom, and I almost jump as Leo's voice booms in the small space. "His smell is all over your fucking house!"
Then he should probably shower more.
There's a small silence, and I imagine that Leo just gave him a look that shattered any surly confidence he might have had.
Like I said, he was here for like an hour yesterday.
And why didn't you fucking tell me that earlier?
Because I knew he'd be acting like this, seriously.
Their footsteps shift again in time with their voices muffling. I dare to let out a small sigh of relief. I can still hear them arguing, but I don't really care enough. You pass through the cupboard door, into the bathroom. You follow the voices down to the hall, into the kitchen. Leo is on his way to the door. He stops in front of it, turning back around to Flynn, who's following close behind. "You're really starting to piss me off, Flynn."
"And you're really starting to freak me out, Leo."
"All of that still doesn't explain why his smell is all over you." Flynn works his jaw for a moment, eyes narrowed.
"We roughhoused a little bit by the mine."
"By the mine?"
"You know how he gets sometimes, and it was really hot."
Leo is shaking his head, like he's tired of listening to what Flynn has to say, like he's tired of everything. "And then to have it mixed with that smell!" Flynn throws his hands up, exasperated.
"I jerked off later. Sorry, but this really ain't any of your business."
"You know, it kind of fucking is, since I planned out this entire fucking thing." Leo's starting to lose his temper again. You know this isn't like Leo at all.
"Calm down. Jesus. Maybe he went off to do more research or whatever. Said he wasn't done at the mine."
"At the mine?" Leo's not listening anymore. He's looking to the side, staring at the wall, hackles raised.
"Listen, I'll drive around town real quick to see if I can find him before work, alright?"
"Flynn, you know you ruined this whole thing for me, right?"
"Thing? For you? What are you talking about?"
"And I'll be fucking damned if I let you do it again." The anger and spite in Leo's face is scaring Flynn.
"Leo, what's going on?"
But Leo still isn't listening. The wolf turns sharply away, yanking open the door.
"Leo?"
Flynn reaches out, resting a hand on Leo's shoulder. But at that moment, the wolf throws an elbow back into Flynn so hard that the lizard is sent stumbling back several steps before falling to his knees. Flynn lets out a hoarse groan, but Leo ignores it, slamming the door shut on his way out. Flynn stays like that, doubled over on the carpet, making soft rasping noises before his breathing finally comes under his control. He stays there a while longer, absorbing what just happened, knowing that Leo isn't himself either. He also regrets doing anything with Chase. Finally, he looks up, right at you. You decide to leave. There's really no point to try and reason with him. It's been a while since you've been out alone like this. It feels good not being attached. Something about that lizard, Flynn, is helping this happen. You'll have to deal with him later. As you continue to walk down the dirt road, you see him. It takes a while at first because he's so far away. But then you see that thick tail waving back and forth as he approaches you. Can he see you? Probably. It's been a long time since you were attached. But the feelings, the thoughts, you can remember it like it was yesterday. The new one is better, a lot more quiet. At least, you made him quiet. It was easier to do than with this one. He keeps walking towards you, and you start to wonder if you should turn back. You always snap back eventually. Why not let this play out? Let's see how far this will go. Now that you're this close, you can see water dripping off of his body. Even after all of these years. Finally, you can make out his face. Angry. No, furious, finally seeing you again. He doesn't like what you did, and who can blame him? He starts to run towards you. You finally stop walking. Waiting. He's on you in a second, lunging, blunt claws and sharp teeth bared. I keep wondering if I should come out myself. The last time I heard any voices was like almost 5 minutes ago. Still, I realize that they could both be outside or something, and I don't want to come running out if Leo decides to come back in. So I wait, starting to feel sweaty in my cramped position, my nose twitching from the strong chemical smells. I'll probably have to take another shower. After another few minutes, I hear a soft padding up the hallway. I know it's Flynn, but I wait. Another few seconds of silence goes by before Flynn finally speaks.
He's gone.
So how are we going to explain to Leo that Carl just forgot that I was there? I pull my shirt over my head, feeling kind of gross putting back on my musky shirt. Flynn stands in front of his dresser's mirror, having just finished putting on his tie. He's currently picking at his scales with a pair of tweezers.
Carl forgets everything, especially when he gets high, which is all the time.
Flynn's been acting kinda distant after the whole Leo incident. It's not hard to imagine why. I'm feeling the same way. Leo almost finding out, probably finding out, had put a damper on our stupid excursions. It really put into perspective how immature we were being. Alright, so I'll say I spent the night at Carl's, then left in the morning to do some filming, then came back. Flynn had told me to text all of this to Carl before I go over there. The only response I'd gotten so far was a short, "What?"
We don't got any other choices.
I guess not.
And Chase, we probably shouldn't do this anymore.
Yeah, I know. Flynn glances at me through the mirror, then returns to picking at his skin. He clears his throat.
I know this is kind of gross, but
it's fine. We've all got our gross things to deal with.
Can't go into work looking like I got snowed on.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't ever really get that bad, but...
Flynn breaks off awkwardly as he goes back to his grooming. It's weird seeing him this off, but again, it's not like it's unwarranted. I sit on the edge of his bed, texting Carl again to try and get him to at least partially understand what the plan is. After a couple minutes, Flynn clears his throat again.
Listen, Chase, you ever feel a little bit like not yourself?
I look up and see that the lizard is looking at me through the mirror again. He quickly turns his attention back to his picking.
I don't know, like you're not fully in control of what you do?
I frown. Is Flynn trying to get at something? Explain his own actions? Does he feel like he wasn't in control of what happened between us? No, at least I don't think so. Flynn finally puts down the tweezers and turns to me, leaning his rear against the dresser.
So you've never felt like you're not yourself?
Though I'm not totally sure as to what Flynn is getting at, I decide to humor him and think. I guess after what happened when we were kids, I didn't feel right.
After Sydney?
Yeah. I tried to avoid talking about it directly, but Flynn doesn't seem to be bothered right now. You probably remember that I saw a therapist after, because I felt so different and it scared me. Flynn nods.
Did they figure it out?
Kind of. If I remember right, they said it was like a dissociative thing?
What's that?
Like, sometimes when something really traumatic happens, your mind sort of distances you from yourself to protect you. I shrug. Something like that. I'm not very good at psych stuff. I almost tell Flynn to ask Jenna, but of course he can't.
So did they fix it?
Not really, but I got used to it, I guess. It was like the new me.
And you're okay with that?
I shrug again. My therapist said that really traumatic things can change the way your brain works forever. You just learn to live with it.
That doesn't sound good.
No, but it's part of life. I think we all changed.
Yeah.
I don't go into detail about how it got worse over time. The whole not feeling like myself. How I felt more and more like my personality was bleeding away. That I'm a completely different person now than I was 10 years ago. Because in the back of my mind, I just wonder if that's what it's like to grow up. That you become less like you were as a kid. Happy, carefree, a complete douchebag, and turn into a hollow shell of that. I can still feel Flynn looking at me, so I decide to bring up something else that's just as uncomfortable, since we're already there. So, when are you planning to talk to TJ? Flynn's silent for only a second.
Saturday, at the end of your trip.
I'm not sure if that's the best idea. It doesn't leave much time to make amends if things turn sour. Which they most likely will. But then, I guess that means we'll easily be able to just leave as soon as it's over. Okay. Flynn's still looking at me, so I abruptly stand up, putting my phone back into my pocket. Anyway, you ready to go? I don't want to make you late for work.
Sure.
Flynn finally straightens up, walking across the room to grab his keys. I'm glad just to have somewhere to go now. Flynn feeling off like this is one of the most awkward experiences I've ever had. Probably because he's usually so good at making things not awkward. So with that, Flynn takes me to Carl's house, dropping me off before heading to work. I sit quietly next to Carl on the couch as he plays his video games. It's some kind of first-person shooter that I've never seen before. You know, I'm not all that into shooters, but this one is pretty good. Yeah? I try to act interested as I browse through my phone. I've already texted Leo, apologizing and telling him that my phone had died. It's weird how quickly this lie has gotten out of control. I'm making things up as I go at this point, and I'm amazed at how easy it is. Leo hasn't responded, and I doubt he believes any of it. It still gives both of us room to pretend, though. Yeah, man. I think it's the sci-fi elements. I could never play one of those World War shooters. Same. Carl clicks around with the controller for a while longer. You alright? I sigh loudly, finally tearing my eyes away from my phone. Yeah, I'm good. Because you don't seem good. I don't respond to that, instead choosing to zone out to whatever's happening on the screen. What's out this whole story anyway? About you spending the night or whatever? I debate whether it's worth telling Carl or not. He'd go along with it either way, but keeping all of these secrets is starting to make me feel sick. Well, I spent the night at Flynn's. Leo found out I wasn't at the motel, so he came looking for me. Ah, shit. Did you and Flynn, I let the silence hang for a while. Carl snorts. Wow. Come on, Carl. No, I don't mind. Just seems kinda weird. How so? I feel myself get defensive. I'm not really in the mood to be judged by Carl. Yeah, he's cool and everything, but his life, let alone his sex life, doesn't exactly put him in a position to do so. Well, you just barely got here like 5 days ago and already... I sigh. You know how Flynn is. Yeah, I do. So you shouldn't be surprised. But I mean, we've known him since we were kids. Just feels a little bit... Carl, I'm not really in the mood right now. Carl goes quiet for a few more minutes, the clicking buttons on his controller the only sound. It doesn't last long, though. You know, I saw you guys at the river a couple days back. I saw you too. I mean, I saw you guys. Carl, I just said I'm not in the mood. Carl shrugs. Just saying, I already know. It's cool. I keep quiet, hoping that will get Carl to drop the stupid subject already. It doesn't work. But I get why you gotta keep it from Leo like this. I pull my phone out to see if I've gotten a text from Leo yet. I haven't. Me and Leo, we don't hang out all that much, though I think he tries to. He talks about you a lot. I try to ignore the guilt that's steadily building up inside me. Did you smoke today? Because you're being real talkative right now. I only ask because I don't smell it. Usually it's pretty strong. Actually, I had an edible this morning. Carl giggles for a good long while after that. Oh, really? I massage my brow with a thumb and forefinger. Normally I get along great with Carl, especially when he's high. But after this morning, basically everything is getting on my nerves. I usually hate that shit, but I don't know. Guess I was bored today. Those things shoot me into fucking space. Guess it explains why you won't shut up. Hey, am I pissing you off? I immediately regret what I just said, as Carl puts the game on pause. No. Just had a stressful morning. With Leo? Carl starts the game back up, giggling again as he shoots a space marine in the face. Mm-hmm. Finally, a text from Leo. Good to know. Another one immediately follows. Let's hang out sometime soon. But you know, Flynn cares about you too. Yeah? I text Leo a quick affirmative, though I'm not really sure when that hangout is going to happen. Yeah, wouldn't stop talking about you when we drove to the reservation. Really? That actually did seem really out of the ordinary. What the hell would Flynn have to say about me? Carl shrugs. Bunch of stuff. He wanted to buy you something for the reservation, but thought it might be too weird. Flynn? Buying me a gift? That is kinda weird. For Flynn, I mean. I thought it was kinda cute. What else did he say? Carl seems to think hard while he continues to shoot guys on the screen. He twists the controller this way and that, bumping into my shoulder each time. Said you seem to have grown up a lot, that you're way different than you were as a teenager. Yep. Really cute. Carl's tone seems slightly annoyed there, but I don't really care enough to ask about it. By the way, how's your project going? Being reminded that I have an entire project to do doesn't ease the knot that's formed in my stomach. Not that great. Still need a lot of film and research. What kind of research? Stuff about Echo. Like, history stuff? Yep. Carl plays a while longer, then sets down his controller. My mom might have some Echo history stuff in the cellar, but... He pauses. You know Flynn is like the records holder, right? The clerk, yeah. I already know what Carl is getting at, and honestly I want to kick myself for not thinking of it in the first place. Carl turns to me, a loopy grin on his face. Those edibles really do fuck with him. So let's go get some records from him. Probably better than digging around in my basement. Well, yeah, we should, but I don't even know what to get. Don't worry about it, dude. I go down there to shoot the shit with him all the time. We can ask him. Things aren't exactly cool between Flynn and I right now, but it's something to do. I'm so behind on my project at this point, I don't have any excuse. We pull into the gravel parking lot in front of City Hall. The stucco structure looks a hell of a lot more weathered than I remember it. Tarps drape the roof, and one of the windows is blacked out with plastic. City Hall is probably the oldest building still standing in Echo. From what I read on the county's website, it served as the town's post office back in the early 20th century. Before then, it was an outpost used as an intelligence operations center during the years leading up to the Mormon Rebellion. Government spies were planted in the nearby settlements from Colville to Peyton, and delivered their reports on potential agitators at this outpost. They actually kept a priest on hand to help, quote, reaffirm the spies' faith in the true word of Christ, unquote. It's weird to think that Sydney was the last Mormon I knew. Are you sure Flynn works here? I exit my car. God, let me try that again. I exit my car, watching Carl stare ahead. His eyes are half-lidded, the ram seeming to stare for miles beyond the building in front of us. Oh yeah, I'm sure. Alright. Carl doesn't move. Are you gonna come out? The ram blinks slowly, his maw starting to hang agape. He shifts his bloodshot gaze toward my torso. Nah, my parents would flip. He flops his wrist in front of him limply, his tone tinged with effeminacy. Of the car. Yeah, just... Give me a sec. Carl reaches down, unscrewing the lid from his water bottle and taking a few hearty glugs. When Carl grabs the car's door handle, he hesitates. After a moment, he looks at me. He's completely silent, sucking in his cheek on one side. Carl? Finally, he speaks. I sort of agreed to come out without considering that I'd be talking to anyone but you and crew today. Let alone the mayor and stuff. I'm still stoned as balls and I look like shit. He laughs some in a self-deprecating fashion, visibly sheepish despite the THC still flowing through him. I think I might just chill here in your car with the air conditioning and He-Gun tactics. He holds up his phone, and I think I can just barely spot the icon for it in his sea of other game apps. Carl does look high, though he doesn't appear any worse than he usually looks. Telling him that probably wouldn't do much for his confidence, though. Excuse me? That's probably a good idea, all things considered. You gonna be alright in here? I mean, if you start to sober up, feel free to come get me. I could always use a hand. I'm good, man. He scoots back the car seat some, leaning it back. You got me up way too early to be hanging out proper like anyhow. I'm usually asleep until like 3 hours from now. You really sleep until 2 o'clock? Yeah. Jeez. Hey, don't judge me. You're the interloper here. I'm about to make a jab about where Carl learned a word that large, but reading his expression, it's evident he isn't in the mood. And honestly, neither am I. I toss him the car keys, and they bounce gently off the rotund bulk of his torso before he scoops them up off the floor mat. I'm gonna head inside and ask for permission to film, then maybe go through some files inside if they let me. Carl grunts. They should. It's all like public record or something. Except for the aliens that crashed out here in the 40s. That's still classified, Agent Hunter. A pang of nostalgia shoots through me as I catch on to what Carl's referencing, a faint smirk tugging at the corner of his lip. When we were little, Carl and I used to run around in old church clothes and pretend to be G-men, hunting for aliens. H&H, Agent Hendrix and Agent Hunter. Our parents got so pissed at us for playing in the dirt in black formal wear, but we were super into it. Carl even drew up a zine, sort of documenting the make-believe adventures. Eventually Carl started getting really into superhero stuff, and tried to segue our adventures into the Superwolf universe. I didn't like Superwolf at all, and after an argument where I called him too fat to be a superhero, we ended our imaginary adventures. God, I was such a dick. Before I can say anything further, Carl's setting his phone aside and popping open my glove box. Do you still have those black sunglasses? Oh man, no. Leo said he liked them, so I gave the pair I had to him. I do have a tortoiseshell pair in there somewhere. Isn't that kind of girly? Carl gives me a sidelong look as he withdraws the aforementioned pair, holding them up to me. What? Guys can wear tortoiseshell? It's not like they're polka dot or something. My mom wears these colored sunglasses all the time. I literally can't see these without picturing her. Well, like, that's your personal thing. No one else thinks that. He slides them onto his face. They rest somewhat awkwardly on his sizable snout, unable to settle in place neatly. Your nose is too big. Carl pulls the shades off his face and limply tosses them in the dash, leaning back into his seat with a long exhale. Alright, well, do your thing. I'll be here. Right. Be back soon, Carl. Yup. I turn, heading inside. Stepping into City Hall, the first thing I notice is how dry the air feels. Like there's no ventilation to speak of. It makes me feel like I'm standing inside a really slow baking oven. Half of me wants to run out and jump into the first body of water I can find, while the other half just wants to curl up into a ball and nap. The faint droning of a voice on a speaker is audible. It sounds like some sort of outdoorsy hunting and fishing podcast. Chase? Flynn's tall, leering form emerges from one of the doorways, a stack of envelopes in hand. We stare at each other for a few seconds, as the reality of what we've done with one another is hanging pretty poignantly in the air. Hey. He exhales, his demeanor shifting, his raised shoulders going more lax and his tail settles on the musty, carpeted floor. What? He looks back through one of the doorways beside him, then back to me, his scaled brow furrowed. For a moment, my mind blanks, and I'm not sure what to do with my paws. It's really stuffy in here. Flynn looks at me questioningly.
The only people who work here are reptiles, so we keep the habitat all dry and such.
His gaze shifts back to the doorway again before returning to me.
There's something you want? I'm pretty busy.
I clear my throat, crossing my arms over my chest. Yeah, I was hoping to get permission to film around City Hall and take a look at some records.
What records were you looking to go through?
Well, I don't know. Flynn stares at me with an indiscernible expression. I'm just looking for anything I can use in my report.
So you don't have any parcel number or a date or anything? You just want to, what, browse?
Well, maybe you could point me in the right direction? You're the city clerk, after all. Flynn lets out a raspy exhale, moving to take a seat in his swivel chair at the front desk, his tail coiling around the base.
Alright, the reading room is off limits on account that monsoon season took out a portion of its roof cover last year. I can set you up in the mailroom with a microfiche and a computer for the time being.
He grasps the edge of his desk, staring at the tips of his fingers.
I need to check with the mayor to see what all you've got access to.
Flynn's about to stand up again when another Gila steps in the room. She's slightly overweight and decked out in khaki shorts with a matching outdoorsy button up top. Despite being indoors, she dons a large sun hat, also khaki, with a vibrant floral bandana around her neck. This must be the mayor, Flynn's aunt. I thought I heard another voice in here. I catch wind of her perfume, a strong, sweet pea scent that seems to fill the room. Her slitted blue-green eyes focus in on me. It's almost like she's sizing me up. Are you from the Grant Committee? I pause, quickly shaking my head. No, sorry. She visibly seems to deflate, her brow lowering and her eyelids drooping to a half-lidded lull. I'm Chase, Flynn's friend. That's so. Another one, then? She looks over toward Flynn, who's currently rubbing his temple. He responds quickly.
An old friend. Childhood. You've met Chase before, I'm pretty sure. Or at least seen him around town.
She seems to think for a moment, before a look of realization comes to her. Oh, I almost didn't recognize you with that thing on your chin. I most certainly remember you. I blink, reaching up and covering my goatee instinctively. You're the one who was always palling around with the red wolf fella, Leo, weren't you? Gay couple, right? I chuckle a bit sheepishly, nodding. Having spent the past 3 years at Pueblo, I'm not as used to people talking about me like this as I once was. Yeah, sort of. I mean, yes. She exchanges a glance with Flynn, who's looking a bit tense.
Chase is doing a school project on the town and wants access to records we've got on hand.
He fill out a request form yet?
No, he just wants to browse, I guess.
Well, it's only public record stuff that I want to take a look at.
You still have to go through the process. Usually their requests are just for a parcel at a time.
What sort of school project is this for, Chase? Well, I'm a journalism major at the University of Pueblo. I have to create a documentary-style video report on something. I chose Echo. Ah, you aren't aiming to smear us to the general public then, are you? Her tone suggests she's joking, but she has that same intense look that Flynn has where I can't really tell for sure. No, Mayor. You know, we have a grant application that we're interested in putting out there that requires a video entry detailing the sites around town. Would you be interested in that sort of thing? Oh, well, maybe? I don't know. I guess I'd have to know more about the project? Honestly, I can't imagine the sheer amount of sugarcoating I need to muster to create a positive report about this place.
Fill this out.
Flynn is pushing a form across the desk my way. The mayor clears her throat. Chase, where it asks for lot parcel request, you can just put all inventory. Alright, will do. As I take a pen from Flynn and begin to write, I see him look up to his aunt.
All inventory?
Yes.
Alright then.
He huffs some idly. The podcasters on Flynn's computer speakers are going into detail about creating complex fish nets and trappings. I'll leave you two boys to it then. Welcome back to Echo, Chase. It's good to be back. Flynn subtly rolls his eyes, turning back to his computer. The mayor just smiles before heading back to what I assume is her office. I finish up the form in silence, pushing it back toward Flynn. He squints at it for a moment before speaking.
Any word from Leo?
The topic change catches me off guard. I look up to see Flynn leaning in close, his voice lowered. Yeah, he believed the whole spending the night at Carl's story.
Carl went along with it?
Uh-huh. I ended up telling him the whole truth, though. I guess I just started feeling real shitty about all this lying. Flynn leans back in his chair suddenly, clenching his eyes shut tight. He opens his mouth like he's going to say something, but merely shakes his head.
Chase, you fucking realize that when this week is over, you just get to go back to college land, and I'm stuck here with the results of all your shitty choices?
You know Carl as well as I do. He wouldn't go telling Leo to start drama. And anyway, he saw us. You know, by your truck. Flynn's eyes open, and he just stares at the ceiling for a long moment.
Fuck it. Let's get your musky ass set up with a goddamn county guest login so you can access our GIS maps.
He scoots back over toward his computer, beginning to type something in. I catch a glimpse of his desktop wallpaper. It looks like some sort of waterfall surrounded by a lush evergreen forest. It's kind of blurry, like a smaller image stretched to fit the screen size. I also see a few transparent stock image logos overlaid on top.
We've got physical records, the real old ones, stored in the mailroom. Though, I wouldn't say the shit there is very browsable. Some religious historical society types came by 8 months ago and helped us archive a lot of it. They're on the labeled manila folders along the south wall.
Flynn turns back to the computer, pecking at the keyboard. For a clerk, he's not remotely a fast typer. Oh, damn, I forgot to ask for permission to film here. Flynn grunts.
Permission granted. Go do that while I get this fucking thing working.
Glancing back at his screen, I see incorrect password, 2 remaining entries before lockout flash up. After looking at his keyboard, it takes me only a couple seconds to figure out what's wrong. Flynn?
What?
He snaps at me, and I can see his pointed teeth between his scaled lips for a moment. You have caps lock on. Flynn pounds the caps lock key with some extra force before returning back to his typing.
Thanks. Now fuck off for a bit.
I stare at him, and I can't help but feel a twisting sensation in my chest. I'm not sure if I expected him to treat me differently after doing what we did, but I definitely didn't think he'd treat me worse. I try to think up something to say to make this right, to make this not awkward as it seems to be getting. Yet the longer I sit here, the more uncomfortable he seems to get. I guess I'm just literally leering at him like a creep right now. Fuck. I get up and head out, deciding keeping my mouth shut is the best course of action for the time being. The gravel parking lot makes it difficult to adequately line up my shot. Everything ends up looking slightly crooked. I know I can probably fix it all in post, but that's more work for me that I'm not looking forward to. Carl, meanwhile, has his eyes glued to his phone. It looks like he found a pair of earbuds because he's got those in too. Refocusing, I take stock of the footage I've got from here so far. The midday sun means that my recordings are all pretty much well lit, but I can't help but think that a sunset would be more symbolic. Maybe I'll come back later, I don't know. My phone vibrates in my shorts. Grabbing it, I see I've got a new message from Leo. With Jenna and TJ playing football. I'm assuming he means soccer, but I decide now isn't the time to press him on word choice. Sounds fun. Filming with Carl and Flynn here. I slide my phone in my pocket, unlocking the trunk of my car so that I can start putting away all this equipment. Huh. Quick response for someone playing soccer. Upon checking my phone, though, the message turns out to be from Carl. Get back to work. No texting. I look around the trunk hatch to see Carl's smirking muzzle, his chin buried in his hoodie. Stepping back behind the trunk, I begin to text back. Oh, I'm so sorry, sir. After hitting send, I set my phone down, beginning to lock up the camera in the neon orange University of Pueblo hard case I borrowed. Another message from Carl. That's, oh, I'm so sorry, Daddy, to you, boy. Jesus. Snickering, I text back. Don't play gay chicken with me. I will win. I finished packing up everything and shut the trunk, waiting for the next response. As if on cue, my phone vibrates once again. I also realize now that Flynn's standing at the City Hall entryway with his arms crossed, staring furrow out of the car.
Why the fuck is Carl here, just sitting in the car?
Grinning, I hold up my finger to him. I look over the most recent message. I don't like chicken, I like cock, boy. I snirk, eliciting a raised brow from the Gila.
The hell are you two doing? I got your shit set up.
You will not win this game, sir. Daddy, I told you, boy. Don't make me spank you.
Oh, he's fucking stoned off his rocker, ain't he?
He ate too much of an edible this morning, apparently. Flynn looks to me, then back to Carl.
Probably for the best he's staying in the car then. Come on.
He turns, heading back inside. I follow, watching Carl smiling to himself before going back to his mobile game. Flynn leads me through the narrow hallways, the ceiling laden with visible old piping and the walls covered in dents and scratches. Eventually, we turn into a colorful room that looks like a mix between an old post office and a kindergarten classroom.
Alright, like I said, archive files are in the back cell of the south wall. The computer in the corner is logged into the county's GIS server. Maps and shit, basically.
Excuse me? He points to a cream-colored computer that must be from around the early 2000s by the look of the make. Dust visible on top of the tower. Oh, so like, where the native burial grounds and that sort of thing are? Flynn crosses his arms, looking back down at me.
Yeah, no. As far as I know, the Meseta tribal government hasn't put forth any sacred right claims within miles of Echo.
Wow, really?
Really.
Why's that?
I don't have a whiff of shit's worth of a clue or care. Go ask Jenna if you want to be all weird about it.
I don't think she has much ties to her tribe.
Yeah, well, it doesn't stop her from being a bitch about it whenever she sees fit.
Flynn sucks in his cheek, as if saying that left a bit of an unpleasant taste in his mouth. Flynn speaking less than kindly towards folks isn't anything new, but not usually about Jenna. He looks down at some papers in his hand, as if they suddenly were very interesting. Is this about what she said when you got Carl the lighter from the reservation? His slitted eyes flicked back up to me, his lips thinned.
You thought that was bullshit too, right?
Well, I think she was just still in, I don't know, den mother mode with regards to TJ after what you did. If you want to get everyone talking again, you should just apologize. There's a pause in the conversation as cloud cover shades the light coming in from the window.
It's not just about the lighter crap. She doesn't give a shit about me, and she really didn't give a shit about Sydney.
I blink. I'm still amazed at how much his name is being mentioned after all these years of silence on the subject. Especially from Flynn. He catches my expression and grunts, the Gila resting the side of his hip against the sorting counter.
When he died, all she fussed about was how it affected TJ. Sid could rot for all she cared.
That's not fair. We were kids, and people react to that sort of traumatic stuff differently. Maybe helping TJ is what kept her occupied.
Oh yeah? Remember a few months before it happened, when all that shit was going on with Sid's dad? And fucking Jenna, all she did was try to shield TJ from all the negativity of the situation?
She tried to help, but he was different. I don't know, fuck, we were just kids.
No. She fucking hated Sydney. Carl hated Sydney. Leo hated Sydney. TJ would never fucking admit it, but he hated Sydney. And you hated Sydney.
He looks me in the eyes now. I'm quiet for a moment, trying to think of what to say. Flynn, meanwhile, just looks expectant, seemingly waiting for me to blanch and try to defend myself. Sydney was an asshole. He raises his chin some. His crossed arms seem to squeeze more tightly over his chest.
Yeah? So am I.
No, not like him.
Nobody knew him like I did.
You've said that, but that doesn't mean the crap he pulled on us, on TJ, was in any way justified. I'm pretty sure he genuinely enjoyed watching people get hurt. Flynn stares slack-jawed before quickly gritting his teeth.
He liked wrestling. He liked pirates. He liked pulpy adventure shit. but he did not like hurting people. TJ cried every day, no matter what. He could see a dead fly on a windowsill and start bawling. And you all would drop everything and come rushing to his aid, scorning the shit out of anybody who didn't. We couldn't make jokes, we couldn't tease each other, we couldn't roughhouse, and we couldn't even fucking swear without TJ getting upset. It isn't like we could just go hang out with someone else. This is Echo, and Leo is fucking dead set on keeping the group together. Though now the group for Leo essentially consists of 2 members, your ass and his cock. I frowned deeply. Before I can interject, he continues. When Sydney died, you all convinced yourselves he was this fucking monster kid so that it didn't have to hurt as much. I ain't gonna apologize. Fucking hell, they should! Flynn uncrosses his arms, staring some out the sole window of the cramped mailroom. The cloud cover lifts. I'll be at the front desk. If you take something, always put it back where you found it. He turns, making his way back down the narrow hall. I'm left alone. Everything feels really quiet now, a sort of weird solace amidst the shelves upon shelves of Echo's history. I rub my face and muzzle, spinning a whisker as the previous conversation plays back in my head, and begins to fade like a passing dream. With a slow exhale, I turn and head over to the archives. They all seem to be categorized by numbers, like 105-66-009 or 107-21-001. I grab a random file off the shelf, 106-01-001. Flipping it open, I see a cluster of 15 or so papers and permits for a place called Adelaide's Thrift and Pawn. It sounds familiar, and it only takes me a little bit before more perusing to figure out why. Near the exit from Route 93 to Flint Road, there's this faded old shack of rotten wood. Growing up, all that was left of the sign out front was Adelaide's Thrift. I think it's bulldozed now, though, since I didn't see it on the drive-in. According to these documents, Adelaide Vondberg applied for and successfully obtained a business license and deeded the property in 1979. I'm guessing these folders correspond to a piece of property with an echo, or a parcel. That helps some, but I still am not sure exactly where to look. I put the file away and move over toward the computer Flynn got ready for me. The screen displays an aerial photograph of Echo, with little polygons drawn over it, like a bizarre checkerboard. Clicking on one, nothing happens. I click again, and the pointer turns into an hourglass, the program stating that it's not responding. Damn it. As the hourglass rolls on the screen, I think I hear the front door open down the hall. At first I wonder if it's Carl, but then a voice speaks that I don't recognize, then Flynn's. I can only make out a little of what he says. That's what they told you at the county office? You could have come here. The hourglass spins. The unincorporation. It shouldn't affect developers who... Finally, a little window pops up listing owner, address, parcel number, links to building plans, and other fields. Slow as hell, but this is actually kind of neat, I guess. Curious, I scroll over to the location of my old house and click. This time it reacts a little faster. The complaint forms are physical. Not much of an online presence yet. It's currently listed as abandoned and condemned. It looks like the people my parents sold it to ditched it rather quickly. I move back toward the archive, picking up my old house's corresponding file and setting it down on the counter. Opening it, I see a weathered floor plan of my old house dating back to 1986. Nothing here could remotely be considered of interest for my project, however. I put the file back where I found it. As I hear the increasingly quiet rasp of Flynn's voice in the other room, I realize he's probably too busy to hold my hand with regards of where to look. Especially after their previous conversation, it might be best to just give him some space. I stare at the aerial display on the computer monitor, trying to figure out where to start looking. Excuse me? Let's just go down the list, shall we? There's something about the old mine that feels off to me. Unlike pretty much every locale in Echo, the mine was the one place we absolutely did not play. Sydney tried to make one of our scavenger hunt objectives down in there once, but TJ told his mom about it, and that was the end of that. After looking out the parcel number, I retrieved the corresponding file and lay it out on the mail counter.
This one has an archival notice attached to the front. I guess my hunch might be right. Opening the file, the first thing I note is that there is a seriously large amount of documents here, and even a laminated old photo. Huh. That's a hell of a lot more verdant than it is these days. Might have something to do with the damming they did up north in the 50s. I'm guessing the CM 1915 is referring to the year the photo was taken. Within the folder itself, many of the documents seem to be legal in nature, including documentation about a lawsuit of some sort. The ones on top seem to relate to that tourism program Echo tried a decade ago. There's a few papers about a historical heritage grant, and the installation of a bench and 2 lamps outside the mine's entrance. There's even reference to a large placard installed into the side of the rock face outside, but I don't remember ever seeing that. Following this, there's another folder within that contains some condemned notices and squatter evictions, dating from 1970 to 1975. Said folder also contains a work order for the installation of rebar bars in the mine front to prevent entry in 1976. Next, there's the actual lawsuit documentation itself. The lawsuit contributed, in part, to the official closing of the mine during the war in 1942. The working conditions were abysmal, and the owners of the mine were also heavily involved in town government, so there were corruption charges. The Danica mine, also known as the CSCG mine, copper, silver, coal, gold, was the most in-demand employer in the northern portion of the state for decades. This was in little part due to management by the owners, but rather the natural conditions of the mine itself. The structure of the bedrock kept cave-ins unlikely, and its chemical composition kept the temperature stable and somewhat bearable. Flooding was of minor concern due to the low water table of the region. In other mines within the state, miners may have been expected to stand in 2 feet of dirty water in 40-degree temperatures, all while the threat of a cave-in loomed, amplified with every strike of the sledgehammer. Yet even still, the mine managed to have one of the highest casualty rates for its workers in all the Southwest. The suit argues that this was at root due to severe negligence by the owner, Gregory Briggs. Miners were required to buy their own tools, including candles, sledges, picks, stakes, and even dynamite. Their wages, however, were of such little amount that many miners must have been forced to choose between having these tools and their family being able to eat that week. Many chose the latter, as most men who moved to Echo did so with the explicit purpose of being able to provide for said families. Briggs operated the mine under constant fear of worker unionization. To assuage this, he hired an incredibly nationally diverse assortment of workers. His rationale, though denied in court, was to ensure that no group of workers spoke the same language, thus reducing the chance of collaboration for better working conditions or wages. This preventative action was particularly heinous due to the nature of the work itself. Communication was crucial, especially in the low-light conditions of the lower depths. Despite the language barrier, miners were expected to coordinate dangerous group mining procedures. For example, for standard ore extraction, one miner would hold a spike to the mine wall, while another miner swung the sledge toward the spike. With light sources being scarce, this meant that the risk of striking the other miner with the sledge was a constant risk, and something that occurred with some frequency. Many miners were crippled from blows to the paws or arms, and then once fired were unable to support their families. This led to several notable starvation incidents within the town. The lawsuit documents also include reference to a brief riot in 1915, where a grisly murder took place within the mines itself. I make sure to write summaries of all this information down on a blank sheet of printer paper before putting everything back. It's this sort of crap that makes me glad I live in the age I do now. I don't think I'd make a very good miner. Alright, that's that, I guess. After finding the parcel number on the GIS thing, I can't seem to find the corresponding file to it. It's like it doesn't exist in any records here. Or it might just be misplaced. I'm going to go with the second theory. Maybe I'll ask Flynn about it later. City Hall has a lot of history. I assume most of the really old stuff isn't on file, but I'd be curious to see what's there regardless. After looking up the parcel number, I retrieve the corresponding file and lay it out on the mail counter. This one has an archival notice attached to the front. That's good. Hopefully that means there's supplemental information in here. Unfortunately, upon opening the file, I see there aren't that many documents. There is, however, a marked photo of some sort wedged between the folder edges. Whoa. If that really is the date of origin in the top right corner, this photo of these guys was taken at City Hall 100 years ago. I look back down to the folder, finding a caption note for the image. Sheriff William Adler, left, and Winsleydale researcher Cliff Tippett, right, at town meeting to discuss Echo-Masada tribe relations. Adler. I just realized now that's Janice's last name. Must be a distant relative of hers. The rest of the documents in the folder just seem to consist of proposed additions and use changes for the building. A lot of them didn't pan out. There is a city government roster here, though, and it lists the historical election results for the town going back to the early 20th century. Surprisingly, Flynn and his aunt aren't the only Moores I see on this list. It looks like the Moore family has been involved in public office in some capacity as far back as 1914. Which is doubly surprising, noting the prejudice against reptilians that was pretty heavy back then. There's this whole negative stereotype about them being evil and controlling the government that persists even today. So it's pretty weird a family like the Moores managed to keep getting elected back when the ignorance levels were much higher. I'll make a note to ask Flynn about it, as sensitively as possible. I go ahead and put everything back in the folder before returning it to the shelf. So what next? I know enough about Carl's family to know that his house is seriously old. His great-great something or another is the town founder, after all. The place has been seriously modernized into a more stucco adobe style, but there's some history underneath all that. Growing up, Carl overheard all this and started thinking the place was haunted. It freaked him out pretty badly. So much so, his parents basically begged me to have sleepovers with him during the weekends, and even some weekdays. Not that I minded, of course. Carl had all the video game consoles that were out, and his parents bought him N-rated games. I got to stay up late with his giant TV, blowing up aliens and running over hookers. I remember he started to become less afraid as time went on, and his parents stopped asking for me to come over as much. So, of course, shitbag younger me told Carl a bunch of stories about a ghost bride who I said I saw standing outside his house at midnight. And that's how I got to spend my whole 5th grade summer vacation living at Carl's place. After looking out the parcel number, I retrieved the corresponding file and laid it out on the mail counter. This one has an archival notice attached to the front. That's pretty surprising on account that it's a residential lot. Opening the folder, a photo placed in front of all the documents immediately catches my attention. Wow. The first thing I look for in a man is his heart and all that. A part of my mind immediately flashes back to Leo, but even he wasn't anywhere close to being this defined. I guess life in the early 20th century will do that to you. I should probably read the caption note for this that was attached. Sheriff William Adler rests after surviving the partial collapse of the Hendricks Castle. The Hendricks Castle? Below the note are some rather old, rudimentary building plans, crumbling at the edges. The penmanship is all weird cursive and I can't read it. It does look a little like Carl's house, but much, much larger. What follows are a series of deed transfers from various members of the Hendricks family, and eventually more modern building plans. There's even a cutout from a magazine, Southwestern Modern, which shows off the kitchen space back when it was first redesigned. I noticed something wedged in the back, a beige piece of paper that doesn't look like anything else in here. A poem? Why would this be in here? Embrace of these lands. Boyk. As black takes the sky, hot turns to cold. The safety of ignorance from the specters of the day. Shut their eyes, they wail for the dark blanket. And to save them from a hell, and the blonde tarantula pulls itself from the depths, wrought within and without, in search of a suitor who will not live past the vehemence of its love. I flip over the poem and set it down on the counter. On the other side is a notice of death, for reference in an estate transfer. It's for a James Hendricks, who passed away in 1913. The cause of death is listed as poison infection, Theraphosidae tarantula. This is pretty unsettling. I didn't think tarantulas were poisonous. I mean, I know they aren't, because I fear searched that information online one night after seeing one on my back porch at 3 a.m. I guess that poem was some sort of informal epitaph for this guy. Regardless, it's a shitty way to die. I slide the poem/death notice back into the folder and make note of it for the project. I think that's all for this parcel, so I place the folder back in its slot on the south wall. As I turn around, I see the mayor standing in the doorway. She's peering at me quizzically. A little startled, I straighten up. Oh, hi, Mayor. I was just finishing up. She's watching me speak, like staring at my mouth, not my eyes. It's honestly freaking me out a little. She doesn't respond. Mayor? Make sure you put everything back where you found it. Oh, yeah, don't worry, I did that already. Did you now? She steps in the room and picks up a folder from the edge of the counter. I recognize it as the one for the abandoned mines. Oh, God, yeah, I forgot that one. Sorry. She stands there with the folder held out, waiting for me. I quickly move and take the folder. I try to ignore the hard stare I feel on my back as I walk to the archive wall. Far left end, second cubby from the top. Oh, thank you. I didn't... It looks like Flynn's about ready to take off. You gonna give him some company? The way she phrases that makes me reconsider a hasty response. Sure, I can hang out with him and his roommate. You have a boy in your car? I blink. I have a... Carl in my car, yes. He wanted to hang back while I did all the work. I feign a chuckle, though not very well. I've never been good at that whole smiling with your eyes thing. Carl Hendricks? Yes. Have a good rest of your evening, Chase. Thank you, Mayor. You too. She moves on down the hall. After a moment, I follow suit to meet up with Flynn at the front desk. And I'm going to cut things off here. We will finish we'll finish Thursday next time. And until then, I will see you all later. Thanks for watching, everybody. Bye!